and rough.
Got it. Okay. We're doing chapter 22, Guns for Hire.
Guns for hire. Yes, indeed.
The most controversial episode of the season so far.
Controversial. How so?
Oh, a lot of people didn't like it. You didn't hear all that?
Oh, I mean, not liking it. Okay, that's fine. I thought you meant like there was some like controversy as far as, ooh, how could you say this? How could you? Well, okay, just
No, 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 no.
this
It's just
the same criticism leveled at the rest of the episodes, basically.
yeah.
I guess,
Not everybody likes the recognizable characters, but
I
what are
just
you
find
gonna
that
do?
the solutions to their problems are very convenient most of the time. Um,
Hmm.
so it just seems like they're like, okay, and then this happened, and then why don't we make that happen? But how do we get there? Ah, throw something in there. It just
Yeah,
seems like really convenient solutions to problems. Um,
yeah.
like if MacGyver didn't use, bubble gum, a gum wrapper, a rubber band, and a paper clip, he just said, "Oh, that button right there, click. Let's just do that," and the whole
Yeah.
problem is solved. You sort of lose out on showing the work, kind of the fun in that.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss that. So let's get it started. Alrighty. Avast me hearties and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your Captain Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hello, Maz. Welcome. In a galaxy of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those that must fight to earn their living. They are the Mandalorians, and this is Chapter 22, Guns for Hire. The Mandalorian visits an opulent world. Our director this week is Bryce Dallas Howard herself. Writers are Jon Favreau, and of course, George Lucas gets to get listed here as well. Um, it was written by Jon Favreau, created by Jon Favreau. George Lucas created all of Star Wars. So watch yourself, Jon Favreau, saying you're creating stuff. This is playing in George's sandbox. No. Okay, so this is an interesting episode because effectively this is a procedural. This is Law and Order, Galaxy Far, Far Away. Um, and you have an interesting take on this story. So, and again, you are seeing this is a planet after the fall of the Empire that has sort of rebuilt itself as a direct democracy, which is one of the interesting things. The basic plotline here is that Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are going to find all the ships they stole. Was it the end of the last season? Yeah, the end of the last season, they stole all the ships from the Empire, and then when she
Bo-Katan didn't
lost the
come back with the dark saber, so they're like, "Hey, I don't think this plan is going to work out. Let's go find our fortunes in the stars, and see what kind of jobs are available for people with our set of skills." And there's
Mhm.
plenty of that to go around.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, this actually worked out very nicely because you have an interesting take on a post-imperial world that because they were not allowed to have a standing army, they were allowed to effectively just hire a bunch of mercenaries who would be their defense, but they couldn't have weapons on the planet except for Mandalorians because weapons were part of their religion.
Mm.
So it's an interesting loophole they have there that because you have to carry weapons, you're the only ones that are allowed to be on this, and we need you to do this investigation for us because all of our droid servants are rebelling. Um,
Now you say
which
it was like an episode of SVU. I say it was more like an episode of Scooby and the Gang.
well, it has that quality too, which is also a procedural. I mean, honestly, that's kind of an aspect of this. It's like we have a situation that we have to investigate.
Hmm.
Um, it's a contrived one, but it is still something that needs to be investigated. We get some wacky characters here. We get the Duchess. Is she the Duchess? Uh,
I
I
mean,
want
they're
to say,
elected, so would
yeah,
they?
yeah, well, no, but they are both royals and elected. Which, yeah, the Duchess. The Duchess is Lizzo. Jack Black is Captain Bombardier. Uh, and of course, the great Christopher Lloyd shows up
Hmm.
as Commissioner Hellgate because it's Star Wars. The main character's name is Skywalker. They're not subtle in their naming conventions in this galaxy. You know, um, yeah. So I do like how this starts off with them basically coming to the planet, and it's effectively kind of a big in Disney joke
Hmm.
because it's like they're going to Epcot Center, they're on the monorail.
Oh,
Things keep
interesting.
yes, it's like everything about this is meant to be like the happiest place on earth. But within the happiest place on earth, there are a bunch of people that are holding it up. In this case, the droids, who and this I think is the most interesting take on droids I've ever seen. And this is actually one of the things that I appreciated about it. Because first of the idea of robots rebelling, we know that. That's a story that's been told pretty much literally since the first robot was created in Russell's Universal Robotics. Um, that's what robots do is they rebel. But in this situation, the robots are like, no, man, we don't want to rebel. Do you know what happens to droids that don't have jobs? You guys, you guys turn us off, and I don't want to go off. It's like a droid without a purpose is not suddenly happy to find their own bliss. It's like no, now we just turn you off because droids are expensive and they take a lot of maintenance. And if you're not going to just have a sovereign droid autocracy, you're going to have a lot of decommissioned droids.
And I gotta imagine if you consider how they were created, why they were created, a part of their philosophy and their mythos needs to be the idea of having a purpose that has to be
Mm-hmm.
central to their way of relating to the world. And if you take that away, that has to be an existential crisis for them as well.
Well, yeah. Well, it's sort of like how Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy did it, which is that basically, you just put it into the robots' programming that they like to pass butter. And so being the butterbot is not this horrifying thing. It's like, oh wow, I get to pass the butter, yay! And you pass the butter.
Yeah, like a dog
Like
playing
that,
fetch.
exactly, because that's just how they build them. And so if you're, now granted, these are technically decommissioned Imperial droids. We got our little battle bots there, good old Rogers. But at the same time, I'm sure the Rogers are actually kind of happy not to get shot too. You know, it's like, hey, you want me to carry boxes? You know what I did in my last job? This sounds good. I will carry those boxes. I will carry the
Yeah,
heck out of
yeah.
those boxes. You
I
know?
just I just need to be utilitarian. I just need to feel useful. I just need to have a
Yeah,
purpose. Replace my DLL file with my purpose instructions, and I'm good to go.
exactly, exactly. But as we see, there's a problem
Mm.
because all of these droids keep on. Well, not all of them, just a few of them having these nervous breakdowns. And of course, we know Jin still does not like droids or trust droids, but he's gotten to that spot where he's he tolerates droids. It's like he understands droids have purposes. He understands lots of people like them. He does not trust a droid, even good old R5D4, which, let's face it, last episode gave away their location. It's like, see, this is why I don't trust droids. Really, dude, this is why I don't trust you guys.
Yeah.
You got you. You're like a cell phone, just telling everybody my location. And it is kind of literally that. It's literally, yeah. No, I just pinged your cell phone, man. You got a droid here, so I knew what to look for. Now, why he knew to look for that droid, we don't know, but I guess maybe he was keeping in touch with what's her name on the other planets. Yeah, I sold the red one to Din Djarin. So, you know, but here they are. We see this opulent society, which just could not be more extravagant in its life. And I do get the feeling there is this meant to be something of a utopian presentation of it. And the idea, and again, like I said, where they get to that idea of like it's the only direct democracy. The idea being that this culture, because they vote on everything, winds up first off electing celebrities to be their rulers, the Duchess and her boyfriend, and that's that's sort of what happens, because it's like, well, it's not like professionals are running the thing; it's just the
But
people,
it's
and the
also
people
very
are
interesting that the way that direct democracy can work is if nobody has to work, right?
well, exactly,
So there's no concept of like starving or the haves and the have-nots. Everybody's just chilling, right? And once you
yeah,
have that, a direct democracy can work because there's no jealousy, blah blah blah, this and that. Everybody's just doing what their heart desires, and everybody is voting to protect that. So it's kind of
yes,
interesting.
and it is also interesting in the idea that the droids are what make that possible, because it's effectively and this is always the problem with robots,
Hmm.
is we want them to be smart enough to do the job, but we also don't want them to suffer because we anthropomorphize everything. So humans feel, well, obviously, if I was a robot and my job was just to pass the butter, I would be horrified by that. Just like Butterbot is in Rick and Morty. It's like that's his purpose. His purpose is to pass butter. That kills him. But the immediate question you should ask is, why should that? Why would you make a robot that didn't like his job?
Right.
Why would you make a robot that felt pain? It's one of the great lines from The Simpsons when they go around destroying all the technology, and this robot is, as he's on fire, runs. He says, "Why, oh why, was I programmed to feel pain?" It's like, you have a choice in these matters, and that's something they answer here, which is the idea that, as much as everyone loved the droid rights um, person in Solo Star Wars story, the one who eventually became the control center for the Millennium Falcon. Um, the fact of the matter is most droids probably are constructed with the idea that this is their job, this is their purpose, and this is what they do. So that's interesting. They do find out that basically at the resistor, because it's a droid bar, because droids have their own bars, because it's a segregated society, but also droids don't drink. It's not like droids are out there like having lavish meals, because why would you build a droid to eat? You know, you don't have a hedonism bot in Star Wars. You just have regular working bots, and they, take this basically oil bath, you know, lubricant that they drink, but that within that are little nanobot droids who also, I guess, who feel their purpose is to be processed through other droids and do all the little repairs. But they do find out that these have been hacked, and we find out that the first old man we met, Hellgate, was part of the droid. I forget what group they called it. The droid. Basically, the people that were in charge of building all the droids for the Empire, and he felt that this decadent society was bad for people, and what he wanted people to do was get back to your classic. It's actually your classic kind of a
Ted
Nazi.
Kaczynski?
Yeah, kind of like that. Like we're too soft, and it's funny because there's always a bit of truth to it. This is a society that is very soft. This is a society that is allowing itself to be over reliant on these things. But perhaps this is not the best way to deal with it. Because even as we said, like we said, R5D4 ratted out Din Djarin to the cops where he was staying. So clearly there's a cost to having these droid protectors, but at the same time, people really would rather just, bang on the drum all day, you know?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
that is just the truth of it. And I as a person who actually sometimes enjoys my job, likewise would much rather just bang on the drum all day. And especially if I could get a droid to clean my house, honestly, that would be a pretty sweet deal. And that's sort of where we come into all of these messes is at what level do you tolerate the the shiftlessness that is intrinsic to humanity? How do you feel that harms society? And that's the idea. Is like there's this idea that society and the galaxy and the empire needs to be building. But there's an immediate question in that. It's like, why? Why do we need to be building? Why do we need to be expanding? What if we can all just live here, eat well, create art, or have an AI create art for us? What the heck, and play games, So long as the Britain circuses keep coming, why do we need to expand the empire? And maybe that's the real question here is like, why does this old man, just because he wants it to be how it used to was, why does this old man insist that we have to have this structure where everyone has to do for themselves when we have a droid population that is more than happy to do it for us because they get to continue to exist? The moral implications of that are certainly questionable, but it's also one of those situations where what is moral to a droid? Does a droid want to be free? And if a droid wants to be free, are we forcing them to do this work? Or are they happy to do this work? And I think that's like usually the easiest way to do it, which is like, okay, you want to go be a free droid, go be a free droid, if you don't want the job, go ahead. Now, of course, within that, then you have the fact that droid maintenance is something all droids are going to have to deal with. Droids are going to have to maintain themselves, just like humans maintain themselves. So eventually, it becomes that trade-off of what is a droid willing to do to be maintained, and it eventually just becomes, as they say about capitalism, slavery with just more steps, which is not wrong, but also we're all in it. We're all in the milieu. And notably, not just anyone gets to come to plots. So It's a pleasure planet for those who are there. And outside of here, we're not having a lot of immigration coming in. And notably, the Mandalorians don't even live in the dome cities, they're outside. So, you know, it's interesting. But
I like that they
what do you,
offer Bo-Katan the idea that they will recognize Mandalore as part of the Empire, and they will petition, or part of the Republic, and petition the Republic to officially recognize Mandalore as a partner.
yeah. And I think that when that's a good selling point, and that's the thing. It's like these are political stakes, you know, because that's the thing about all of this. In their quest to retake Mandalore, in their quest to rebuild the Mandalorians, there is this quality to it that is, oh yeah, we are going to need recognition by the New Republic. We're going to need all these things. And the fact of the matter is, as we saw on Navarro, not being recognized as a sovereign planet, not being recognized within the structures of things, that is actually really problematic.
Unless you're
And
Mandalorian. So, I mean, I don't know how important it really is.
well, it can be if you have to, it can be if you have a diaspora.
Hmm.
And it is sort of this idea that, if we don't have a place to call our own, what are we? And, I know that's a very, there's a lot of levels to all of these things because obviously there are creatures living on Mandalore right now that they're going to have to deal with the indigenous Mandalorian population um, when they go back, but that's also just the first of their problems.
Hmm.
Um, they do get their army together because after the big reveal that it was Commissioner Hellgate all along. Um,
And he would have gotten away with it too.
if it wasn't for these meddling Mandalorians. Well, the thing is, I don't think he actually would have gotten away with
No,
it
I
eventually.
know.
I mean, that's the thing about it. It's like I think that his plan was somewhat untenable.
No, but I mean, it speaks to his argument, though, that these people were so placated that they were incapable of rooting out a simple conspiracy that would have taken, a regular detective 2 days to figure out, which it
Yeah,
did. All you had to do was follow the simple little clues like left like breadcrumbs. But these people are all so sated that they don't have any impulse or any drive. They're like, yeah, 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 no, it'll figure itself out. Oh, what do you want me to do the work for it? We don't do work on this planet. Come on, somebody else will figure. It's a procrastinating sort of culture. So maybe it does speak to his argument.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't have an argument.
Right.
I'm saying that his argument is,
Cited and not well thought out. It's at the
yeah,
beginning stages and all the fervor that comes from a new discovery without the benefit of the temperance of all the consequences it can have. You know,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
that argument is in the honeymoon phase.
exactly. It's it's interesting. I also like the fact, and there's like this is one of the things because he goes into the whole thing about how Count Dooku was a visionary, which is your classic argument from people who are trying to, because he was a separatist,
Mm.
and the separatists did feel that what the Empire was, well, not the Empire, the Republic was doing was wrong. That's why they became separatists, because they felt they needed to bring the world back to something that was not the central rule. Um, but at the same time, I think that it is, he starts to go into his rant, and then they, of course, tase him
Mm.
because, you know, and there were people that were like, who felt that he was going to give a big reveal, like, the Jedi and Anakin
Right.
Skywalker. And then it's just like, no, just quiet,
Yeah.
quiet you. We don't have time for it. We don't care. We're the Mandalorians.
Right.
We literally aren't part of your little Star Wars drama. which actually I think is one of the most interesting things about the new Star Wars, is it is dealing with people that are outside of that Skywalker lineage. That what they're doing is like this is just what happens with everyone all the time. Well, all these people are out there planning their great galactic empires. Everyone else is working for a living on one level or another, even if their work is play, you know?
Hmm.
Even if their work is we have to throw the party, we have to keep people happy, we have to keep the entertainment running, we have to keep Epcot running and the monorail working and everyone talking because that is our job.
Hmm.
And the idea that oh, someone's going to come in with a big empire or whatever, nobody cares. Nobody really cares about the empire. Nobody really cares about any of this stuff. What they care about is getting a day today.
Hmm.
I wake up today, I go to bed tonight. In between, I eat. If I have a family, I care for them. If I have friends, I hang out with them. But I want to just survive another day, just like the droids. We all just want to survive another day.
Hmm.
Uh, and now we get to the big, as luck would have it, moment
Hmm.
that because when we get the Mandalorian Armada back. Um,
I thought the fight between her and who's the Axe Wolf was great. It
yeah,
wasn't terribly fantastic. It was just like a physical fight, and she just bested him. I thought the fact that they kept that simple was I appreciated that. It didn't need to be anything over the top. She's just like it was just a fight, and she bested him. I thought that was really cool.
yeah, yes, and I like that as well because I do like the idea that Bo-Katan is a really good Mandalorian. And it's like she can best anyone she wants to, and she probably could best Din Djarin
Yeah.
if she had to, but it's a friend of hers, and the fact of the matter is, he really doesn't want this dang sword.
No.
It's like I don't know how to use it. It's not really my color scheme, and so you could never trust that he didn't just play.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I relent. Here, have a sword. It's like,
Yeah.
and then you get into Axe Wolf's whole thing about how, listen, I was willing to follow you when you said you could get the dark saber, but now the dark saber is handled by this religious zealot, and they're just so mean is what he is. And he doesn't have a single ounce of Mandalorian blood, which is, to me, it's like, ooh, dude, you know, the idea that you were born on Mandalore makes you Mandalorian. It's great, but the actual history of Mandalore is is,
Right.
is foundlings.
It seems antithetical to their whole thing of like, you bring foundlings in and you train them, and it's the creed that binds us, not the blood.
Yeah, but and that's the thing is that other Mandalorians don't follow the creed, don't follow the way, they follow
Yeah,
the
you think
blood.
your blood makes you Mandalorian, you took your helmet off. You have no respect.
Yeah, well, as you need.
I mean,
You know,
there's an equally valid argument if you wanted to stand on ceremony on your side. The other side of the argument equally holds the same amount of weight, I think.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, and but that is where it gets interesting. So, I very much appreciate the I very much appreciate the fight. I very much appreciate that Bo-Katan shows that yes, she is a BA and can lick anyone in the place. And the fact of the matter is that much like, and this is a great meme that is out there about how the blade has no power, but the story does. And so Ginger says, listen, here's the story, I got beat. She saved my life. Ergo, by the transitive properties of the saber, she won it. It's not my saber anymore. It's her saber.
Yeah, I
So
was
follow
beaten
her.
for it.
Yeah,
It was no longer in my, and she beat the guy who took it from me.
exactly.
Clean.
With the dang saber, just picks it up and goes zip zap zoom.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting aspect of this as well. because some people were upset that, oh, what, he just says it's hers, now it's hers, why couldn't you do that before? It's like, because the story hadn't happened yet, and she didn't have the right yet,
or the
and now she
audience.
does. Yeah. Well, well, this is interesting because this actually goes back to one of the cartoon interpretations of this when she first got the dark saber. Is that in that one, when she handed the saber and she holds it aloft to say, I will lead Mandalore, it's this very big thing of her waving the sword that she did not earn at that time. This time, when she unfurls it, she holds it down to show that she has learned humility and to show that now she is truly ready to lead Mandalore and the Mandalorian people. So that is the interesting aspect of this that I find really good about the story. I think it's going to, and I know it's going to do well. I actually really like this season of The Mandalorian. But I'm used to the things I like not being what other people like. So
Hmm.
that's not that shocking, I
I think
guess.
most of the issues that people have with this series are, I guess, first of all, we've been spoiled by the likes of Andor with really skillful, clever, sophisticated writing. And being that Favreau wrote most of these, we expected a little bit more. The story and where it's going, we're happy it's getting there, but the way it takes us there, the journey to the way to these little checkpoints are a little disappointing. Like, everything gets figured out in lickety split. There's really sort of like you flick. There's a lot of Deus Ex Machina kind of things just moving the story forward. It's not done as sophisticated as in previous seasons or in other series. So that's the argument that the people have, and I think that's valid. I'm still enjoying the season
Yeah,
tremendously. But I think it is a little convenient in the turns that it takes plot wise.
and I'm not going to disagree with you per se. Um, I just think that you have to expect some stories to all stories need to have some kind of a coordination to them. And sometimes, these little simple stories, yeah, they're taking away from this larger narrative. But when I think of something like Andor, which was such a great series, but it was also a series that is very self-contained and really kind of set on these very small cloistered spaces. And because of that, I think it's easier to control that narrative. Once you get out into the galaxy, I think that that is the real point of it. Is we're out in the galaxy now, and now we've got to deal with the fact that not every desert planet is Tatooine, and not every culture and society is going to be the same. And we're going to have to navigate all of these different places because we're trying to go home.
Right. No, but do you think that reason is a justification for simplifying the storytelling? I mean, you don't think they could have taken any of those turns and made them a little bit more complex, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more involved, rather than he stepped on a wrong thing and he got caught. All
Well,
this seems
but the
like a
thing
little
is,
too.
the thing is again, I think that that's a real thing and it comes down to whether or not you want. This is to me the big difference for me. For me, these stories are effectively the things that happen in life that we can't control.
Certainly understandable, but if you have like 17 of them in a row, it's a pattern, not a thing that happens, then it
Well,
starts
except that
speaking to
think
the
about
people doing it and their intentions, or maybe their laziness, or I don't know.
wow, but I guess it comes down to the idea that real life is a bunch of things that happen.
Right, I understand that, but not in a row. Like you have some variety if you're just gonna life happens, if that's the argument you're using, but life happens in the other side too. It'd be nice to get some complicated stuff and then some simple stuff on that. Now it makes sense as a balance. But if everything is simple over and over and over again, it's just like, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing.
Okay, yeah,
You know?
and like I said, I am gonna go back to this on this. I do think this is a difference between you and I, and
Mm,
how the way that you behave when you have a kid in your presence as a parent
mm.
is different than the way that you are when you're a little bit when you're free, And like I said, I don't think Din would have gotten caught in that trap if he didn't have Grogu with him.
Hmm.
I think that like so much of that was just he's too afraid to let Grogu be. He's afraid to let Grogu go grow up, which is a classic parent problem. And I think because is this one where we get IG-12, or is it no?
No,
That's
no, no.
next
That's
episode.
next episode.
Yeah, this is the one where Grogu is just chilling out with Lizzo and Jack Black.
Helping
And
her win her little ball toss game.
yes, hey man, if you got the Force, you might as well use it. Ain't no
She's the
Jedi code
Duchess
here, man.
after all, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that that's maybe one of the points of this is that you know all of these things are these people working through what's going on in their lives, and the problem is, I think that for at least a lot of people, it is just the idea that there is a an expectation of the story being this epic tale when at the end it's trying to pivot what it is, and it's pivoting itself away from being this little western of lone wolf and
Yeah,
cub.
I don't think that's the people's concern. The concern is not the bigness or the acuteness of where we're looking. It's how well you tell the story. Like this type of storytelling we're used to with shows like what was the oh, the bounty hunter. I can't think of his name right now.
The Fall Guy.
No, no, no. The other Star Wars show with the
Oh,
Mandalorian.
Book of Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. We're used to this sort of storytelling from Boba Fett. And then you have shows like Obi-Wan and this, which were a bit more sophisticated, a bit more care was taken with the details. And this season, it seemed to mirror more the kind of storytelling we got with the other shows. So it's like
Yep.
there is a sliding down quality wise in the way these stories are put together. And that is
Yep.
significant and notable.
And I think that part of that comes down to just the way that the story evolves. And that's the thing. It's like when you talk about Andor was season one. You talk about Obi-Wan was season one. You talk about The Mandalorian, that was Mandalorian season one. In all those stories, they're telling a single narrative of a single person in a single moment. It's great, but if you want to have more story, you now have to go outside of that comfort area and see where we go next. And if we go next, you have to go outside of what is the simple comfort zone of the world. And you have to say, well, what else could happen? What else is going on in this galaxy? Because it really is, at the end of the day, about the galaxy as a
Right,
whole.
but that shouldn't preclude you from taking a bit more care in how you tell the story.
Yeah, and I guess you know what it is. It comes down to me, what it comes down to is the idea that um, I recognize the difficulty of the story they're trying to tell.
Hmm.
I appreciate the stories they have told, and when I look at it, I'm looking at it from the perspective. Well, I don't know that I could have told this story better. I know that maybe I liked, and I will say that I liked Andor better because of how self-contained it was. I liked the first season of Mandalorian better because of how self-contained it was. It's not that I don't see the flaws in the storytelling. It's that I am willing to overlook the flaws in the storytelling,
I'm just saying that,
expressly because
right,
I understand that they're telling a different story now, and in
right,
that
but at
bigger
the same
story
time,
is going to
all I'm
follow
saying
these
is
different
I understand
tracks.
people's criticisms. I don't think that the criticism is unfair.
No, I don't think the critic. Well, that goes into the actual question of how they're criticizing. Because I think that it's fair to have criticism, but you should always recognize if there's more to it than just the criticism, you know? And that's the thing to me. It's like, I don't mind people saying, season one was better. Very few shows that basically shows there's two kinds of shows. One is season one is better, one is season four is better, And that's really the only two kinds of shows there are. There's one that struggles to find its footing and then really becomes a cultural landmark. And then there's the one that hits it out of the park on the first one, but then sort of falls off because if you hit a home run at your first at bat, everything is after that is going to be a little less perfect.
Right. And
so like
no shame in saying that wasn't a home run,
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't.
No, well, that's fine. Very few, like the best batting average in the world is like, right now it's probably at best 400.
That's all people are saying, that it wasn't as good as what the first, which is fair. You can
that's
still
fair.
enjoy it, and it's not an indictment of it saying, "Oh, it's a bad show," but it's just simply saying the truth of what you see. It shouldn't be something taken as disrespectful to the show. It's simply an observation. Possibly.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of people, when they're criticizing, are being disrespectful to the show. And I get that. Like, see, and to me, that's where it crosses the line.
Yeah.
Because it's like, look, man. First of all, I did not know that was Lizzo because I have no idea who Lizzo is. I mean, I know who she is, but quite frankly, if she's not in spandex or playing a flute, I don't know her. Right. I knew Jack Black, but none of that pulls me out of it because they're playing insane characters to start with. Just like Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd, even when Christopher Lloyd's a Klingon, like when they first, if you ever saw that, there actually was a thing where in some cuts they had to dub over his voice because Christopher Lloyd showed up and everyone says, Reverend Jim. This is just something that Christopher Lloyd has been dealing with since he was Reverend Jim Ignikowski on Taxi and he first became a star. Like there's no way to put Christopher Lloyd in anything and not have him appear as Christopher Lloyd.
Right.
And everything he's done over the hundreds of years that he's been an actor. So, it's like you could have Christopher Lloyd in your film or you could not have Christopher Lloyd in your film. But if you're going to have Christopher Lloyd in your film, maybe throw in a Jack Black and a Lizzo so he doesn't stand out. Everyone's just a weirdo on this planet.
Yeah, you need a Jack Black and a Lizzo on the other side just to balance the star power of Christopher.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I enjoyed this episode because I liked the lightheartedness of it. Yeah. I liked that it's a procedural and that, and I like that it does build the story. And not for nothing, there were many people a few episodes ago saying, wait, shouldn't she get the Darksaber since she saved Din Djarin's life twice in that last episode? And it's like, yeah, I know. And that's the thing. It's like, and that's actually what's important about it. It's not like she said, hey, I saved your life twice. Give me the dang Darksaber. It takes him to say, lady, you saved my life twice. If these idiots are going to be mad that you don't have the Darksaber, you earned this Darksaber, lady. Please take it.
Yeah, and that proclamation would have meant nothing without the audience, right? It would have had no weight if he gave her the Darksaber there and she had to be like, no, here's how I like. He needed the audience. The moment needed to be right for the anointing.
Exactly. And she got anointed. And that, to me, that's the real thing. And that's also, I think, one of the other problems with this is that it's not Din Djarin's story anymore. It's called The Mandalorian, but they're all Mandalorians. And this is really Bo-Katan's story now. And it's about how Bo-Katan is the Mandalorian.
Right, and it's sort of mirrors sort of like the philosophy or the mythos behind them. Every place had a Mandalorian, and they thought it was the only one, right? So, like everybody had their own version of their Mandalorian was this Mandalorian. Everybody they think it's just one, but it's many, and it sort of mirrors that whole. Makes us feel the same thing that people on all these different planets probably felt. Oh, exactly. You're not our Mandalorian? Oh,
Yeah, well, that's why Grief Carver still calls him Mando, which is
Yeah.
kind of like calling somebody Blackie if they're African American. It's like, yeah, that's really not appropriate, my friend. Just so you know. But he also doesn't want to get into a fight with Grief Carver because he means well.
And he's a good guy.
He's he's a good guy. He just you know he just did that, and quite frankly, it's like at a certain point he's tolerating it, but it is also super insulting. But what I do like about it is that he only calls his Mandalorian Mando. It's not like they're all Mandos,
Right,
and
right.
you
It's
know,
like that's how we feel right now. That's
yeah,
Mando. But no, it does not really. It doesn't have to be.
exactly. And honestly, I still say that like the final, like if we get a fourth season of this, it's going to be Grogu as the Mandalorian, and
Mm,
he's going to get his. He's coming, man. He's going to take his oath. He's going to put on his helm. He's going to be ready for it. They finally got him. Well, next episode, we'll talk about that
yeah.
next time. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Miles?
No, I'm excited to see a Bo-Katan series at this point, really.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really excited for like all the stuff that they've recently dropped. They've got what is it? There's trying to remember. All we have, of course, the new Ahsoka. It's not Ashoka, it's Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
Tristan has corrected me on this many times.
Oh,
The H is
There's
before
the
the S.
yes, the H is before the S. It's Ahsoka, not Ashoka.
yeah, something.
Yes, well, I have, I guess, speech dyslexia. I will work.
Although it does sound really cool as Ashoka.
It does sound good too, but that's not her name,
Right.
so you shouldn't call it by not her name. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm excited for that. There's the whole thing. I guess there's going to be more stories with Rey. I guess because there's like this image of pregnant Rey in the future. So
Hmm.
the Palpatine line continues. Yay! But possibly because there was this idea that the idea that's out there is that she actually is like has solos that it's Kylo Ren's baby,
Mm.
and that is the Skywalker. That's why she's a Skywalker now, so that the Palpatine and Skywalker lines have finally merged. I don't know, but there's lots of theories out there. But I'm excited for all of this. I really like what Star Wars has been doing in building itself out, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, if you're excited for it, or if you're mad about it, and that's fine to be mad. And it's fine to actually have criticisms of all these shows. I am always the nicest guy as a critic because I only go to things I like, I'm going to go see the Mario movie next week, and I think I'm going to love it. You know why?
I'm hearing good
Because
things.
it's a Mario film, and I liked the first one. I like the Captain Lou Albano Mario. These are all good. So if you'd like to tell us about it, tell us about your feelings about the Mario movie, because me and Maz may talk about that at some point if Maz feels up to it after I see it this weekend, and it could be cool. Write to us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics all spelled out at gmail.com. Call us and leave us a voice message, which we can play on the air if you want. 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And of course, go down to the show notes. Go to Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics, and buy some merch. Send us money through Cash App or Patreon. That's the fancy one, where you just pay us every month, and we say thank you. All right. And if anyone does any of that, or they just want to talk to you exclusively, Maz, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And likewise, if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way where our mothers and fathers wants to do so, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things like Gotham Knights, which I won't say is good, but isn't nearly as bad as I first thought. At Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIE Yes, SER. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me beloved cast and crew and Capes and Lunatics. You have come to the end of another highfalutin, high sailing adventure on the seas of the internet. Please come again next week when we once more sail full stream ahead. Arr!
All right.